Let's start with something that's going to bother you. Everything you know about ninjas is wrong. Not partially wrong, not slightly inaccurate. Wrong from beginning to end. The black costume, the throwing stars, the smoke bombs, the assassinations in the shadows, all of it is invented, a fabrication. And what's even more unsettling is that we know exactly who invented it, when, and why. But before I give you that answer, we need to talk about another question, one nobody ever asks, because it's too simple, and simple answers are frightening. If ninjas weren't assassins, what were they really? And more importantly, how did such ordinary men manage to change the course of Japanese history, not once, but 3 times, across 3 different centuries? I'll answer that, but not yet, because to understand the answer, you first need to understand something that history books are very careful never to highlight. Something about the nature of power, about how empires survive, and about what a state is willing to do to maintain peace. Keep those questions in mind. We'll come back to them. 16th century Japan doesn't really exist as a unified state. It's an illusion. On paper, a shogun governs in the emperor's name. In reality, the country is fractured into dozens of rival territories, each controlled by a daimyo, a warlord, and his army of samurai. These men trust no one, respect no border, and spend their lives betraying each other. This is the Sengoku era, the age of warring states. And in this chaos, 2 regions stand apart, Iga and Koka, 2 mountainous provinces, landlocked, difficult to invade. Their clans have understood something the great warlords haven't grasped yet. In a world where everyone is fighting, the one who survives the longest isn't the one who strikes the hardest. It's the one who sees the blows coming before everyone else. So they develop something, a set of techniques, the art of disguise, the art of listening without being heard, the art of moving freely through a hostile world while appearing perfectly harmless. They call these the shinobi tactics, and they turn it into a trade. They hire out their services to neighboring lords. They gather intelligence, map military routes, infiltrate enemy camps disguised as merchants or priests. Their reputation grows, and with it, their influence. But here's what I haven't told you yet. What these men actually do, their real job, their real value, isn't killing. It's informing. Remember that. We'll come back to it. In 1579, a man decides to put an end to Iga. His name is Oda Nobunaga. And if you don't know him yet, just understand one thing. He's the kind of man for whom the word ruthless is still too gentle. He overthrew the shogunate. He controls Kyoto. He's in the process of unifying Japan by force, and he does it with an efficiency that terrifies his contemporaries. His son attempts to take Iga by surprise. What the chronicles rarely tell is how the samurai of Iga destroyed him. Not by fighting pitched battles. They didn't have the numbers for that. Instead, men in disguise infiltrate the enemy camps. They observe, they listen, they memorize routes. Then, one night, they strike at precisely the point where the army is most vulnerable. The son's army is annihilated. Total humiliation. Oda Nobunaga's response to his son comes down to one sentence, and it says everything. You have disgraced yourself at the border of Iga. Learn from it. He learns from it. In 1581, he returns with 40,000 men. This time, it isn't a conquest. It's an extermination. Every village burns. Every temple is razed. Thousands of people die. The warriors of Iga use everything they have. Torches to simulate phantom reinforcements, night raids, fires set in enemy camps. 3 marksmen even ambush Oda himself and kill his bodyguards. Oda doesn't flinch. Iga falls. The resistance is broken. Now here's the question I want to leave with you, and I will answer it, but not yet. Oda Nobunaga has just destroyed the masters of Japanese intelligence. He is at the peak of his power. What on earth could stop him? The answer is going to surprise you, because it isn't a ninja. A few months after the fall of Iga, Oda Nobunaga is dead. Not on a battlefield, not killed by an assassin in the shadows. He is betrayed by one of his own generals, surrounded in a temple in Kyoto, and faced with the impossibility of escape. He chooses his own death. He commits seppuku. The most formidable conqueror in Japan falls. And instantly, everything collapses. His allies become targets. His lieutenants turn on each other. And among those who suddenly find themselves in mortal danger, there is one man in particular. A man whose story you need to understand, because without him, the Japan you imagine would never have existed. His name is Tokugawa Ieyasu. The moment news of Oda's death spreads, Tokugawa is in enemy territory with a handful of men, a few dozen, in a country where his enemies count their soldiers in thousands. Statistically, he is dead, except he has something his enemies don't. And that's where everything we've seen so far starts to make sense. The man who will save Tokugawa is called Hattori Hanzo. You know that name. You think you know that man. Forget everything you think you know. The real Hattori Hanzo had nothing of a mystical ghost about him. He was a military commander, a man of networks, someone who commanded the samurai of Iga who had remained in Tokugawa's service after their province was destroyed. And here's what nobody ever tells correctly. These men could have refused. Iga had just been razed to the ground. Their families had fled. Their world had burned. And Tokugawa had been the ally of the man who destroyed it all. But when the survivors of Iga had fled, it was Tokugawa who had opened his doors to them, who had taken them in. In a feudal Japan where loyalty is everything, that kind of gesture is never forgotten. Hanzo accepts, and what he does next has nothing of a cinema legend about it. The road through Iga is infested with bandits, drifting soldiers, bounty hunters. For a group of 30 men escorting a high-value target, it is a killing ground. But Hanzo knows these mountains better than anyone. He knows the paths. He knows the men who control the passes. And he knows the price of a gaze that looks away at the right moment. Bribes, contacts, secret routes, borrowed identities. No throwing stars, no smoke bombs, no acrobatics in the shadows. Tokugawa gets through. He survives. And now here's something I want you to hold on to until the very end of this video. An open question, a real one. If the shinobi weren't assassins but intelligence agents, how is it possible that their story was transformed into the myth of shadow assassins? Who had an interest in that? And when did it begin? Be patient. We're getting there. Tokugawa becomes shogun. He establishes his capital at Edo, present-day Tokyo, and he does something extraordinary. He ends 200 years of civil war. Japan enters a period of peace that will last more than 2.5 centuries. This is the Edo period, and in that peace, something unexpected happens. The shinobi don't disappear. They transform. The men of Iga follow Tokugawa to Edo, but their military skills have no battlefield left, so the shogunate repurposes them. They become the invisible guardians of the regime. Detectives, undercover agents, men whose job is to watch those who might threaten the hard-won stability. Concretely, what does that look like? A man slips into a suspect's house disguised as a servant. He listens, he observes, he reports. To prevent conspiracies, the shogunate forces all major feudal lords to reside in Edo every other year. They are watched, their movements are noted, their conversations are reported. The people call these detectives shinobi-no-mono, people of the shadows. Supernatural powers are attributed to them. Their enemies see them for what they truly are, the secret police of the state. And in 1651, these men will do something that saves the shogunate a second time. The third shogun has just died. His heir is 10 years old. In any system of power, a child on the throne is an open invitation to betrayal. One man decides to seize the moment. His name is Marubashi Chuya, a masterless samurai. He runs a fencing school in Edo, the perfect cover for quietly gathering discontented men and vengeful minds. A shinobi detective infiltrates it. He poses as a servant. He waits. And one night, he hears something that freezes him. Marubashi, feverish, is rambling out loud. And in that delirium, he describes a plan. Set Edo ablaze with gunpowder. Use the chaos to storm the castle. Assassinate the regents. Force the young shogun to undo everything. The detective slips out quietly. He returns with soldiers. The plot is exposed. Marubashi is arrested. The conspirators are executed with deliberate brutality, so that everyone understands the price of treason. And the detective goes back to his work, discreet, invisible, forgotten. That is the real shinobi of the Edo period. Not an assassin, a guardian of the shadows. Now, remember the question I asked earlier. Who turned these men into mythical assassins, and why? Here we are. There's a magnificent irony in this. It was the shinobi themselves who began building their own legend. In the peace of the Edo period, the scholars of Iga had time, and like all peoples who have something to prove, they wrote. They composed chronicles of their ancestors. They described warriors capable of infiltrating any fortress, of making themselves invisible, of hearing what walls keep secret. They wanted their descendants to feel pride. They wanted their province, destroyed by Oda, to live on in memory. These stories reached the kabuki theaters, and there, something shifted. Actors took these tales and dramatized them. Characters leaped, disappeared, hurled knives. And to signal that a character was invisible on stage, actors used a simple visual code. They dressed entirely in black. Just like the stagehands, the ones who move the sets and whom the audience is supposed to ignore. That theatrical detail crossed the centuries and became truth in the collective imagination. The black-clad ninja is not a historical reality. It is a stage convention. But that was only the beginning. Because the great lie, the real one, came in the 20th century. In 1936, a martial artist named Fujita Seiko stood up and announced to the world that he possessed the ancestral secrets of ninjutsu. He claimed to be immune to poison, to imitate animal calls, to move silently across any surface. His work was fiction dressed as history. But pre-war Japan was hungry for heroes. Some people believed him. Then came the Second World War, and after it, defeat. Japan had to rebuild, not just economically, psychologically. It needed to recover a sense of national pride. And the storytellers of the post-war era found exactly what they were looking for in the old chronicles of Iga. Kabuki stories became novels. Novels became films. Films became manga. Manga became animated series. And at every step, reality drifted a little further away. The straight-bladed sword, the one everyone associates with ninjas, appears for the first time in a tourist brochure in 1956. The shuriken, the throwing star, makes its cinematic debut in 1957. And the word ninja itself, that word you use as though it were a 1,000-year-old term, is a 20th century invention. There is your answer. There is who built the myth. Not conspirators, not governments, not shadowy forces. Ordinary people who needed heroes, artists who wanted to inspire wonder, and a cultural industry that understood that shadows sell better than truth. But the story of the real shinobi has one final chapter, and it may be the saddest of all. In 1854, 9 American warships sail into the Bay of Yokohama. Their cannons are pointed at Edo. Commodore Perry demands that Japan open its borders. 2 centuries of isolation end under threat. Among the Japanese who board the American flagship to observe, there is one man who looks like nothing in particular. His name is Sawamura Yasusuke. Trained in the shinobi tradition since childhood, embedded in the Japanese delegation as a simple official, the Americans have no idea they've just allowed one of the most highly trained spies in the country to walk aboard. Sawamura takes everything in. He memorizes the layout of the decks, the number of cannons, the uniforms, the behaviors. He does exactly what the men of Iga have always done, and he understands that none of it will change anything. A spy cannot stop a war fleet. The arts of the shinobi, born in feudal warfare, refined in an isolationist state, don't speak the language of this new world. Japan will have to change, and in that change, there is no place for men whose strength rests on invisibility within a system that no longer exists. The shogunate collapses. Emperor Meiji takes power. He modernizes the country at a relentless pace. The Shinobi Detective Corps is replaced by a modern institution, modeled on European methods. 3 centuries after Oda Nobunaga burned their mountains, the shinobi disappear one final time, in silence, without witnesses, without chronicles to mourn them. So now, I'll answer every question I left open since the beginning. Who were the shinobi really? Information strategists, intelligence agents born in chaos, who understood before anyone else that power doesn't come from brute force. It comes from knowing what others don't. How did such ordinary men change history 3 times? By being present at the moments when everything could tip, by saving Tokugawa through the mountains of Iga, by exposing Marubashi's plot, by keeping invisible the architecture of a state that no one was supposed to see functioning. And who transformed these men into mythical assassins? No one in particular, and everyone at once. Scholars who wanted their province to be remembered, actors who wanted to inspire wonder, filmmakers who wanted heroes, and an entire country that needed to reinvent itself after a lost war. What we call the ninja today has nothing to do with what the shinobi was yesterday. They are 2 different creatures sharing the same name. One existed in the mud of feudal wars, in the corridors of castles, in the surveillance records of an empire obsessed with its own survival. The other lives in cinema halls, on video game screens, and in the imagination of people who have never had to hide in order to survive. Both deserve to exist, but only one deserves to be called real. You just watched this video all the way to the end, and I want to tell you something honest before we part ways. What you just watched didn't come from nowhere. There are sleepless nights behind this script. Nights spent reading sources, cross-referencing dates, rewriting entire paragraphs because one sentence didn't ring true. There is a real team behind this project. People who could have spent their time doing something else and who chose to do this because they believe that history deserves better than shortcuts. That real stories, complicated, nuanced, unsettling stories, are worth telling properly. If you believe the same thing, there's one simple thing you can do. Subscribe. It's one click, but for us, it's proof that this work means something, and it's what allows us to keep going.